Hey guys, this is John.
And Patrick.
And this is another episode of the Meatgistics podcast presented by Walton's. So we've got no Austin today, but since we've been talking a good amount about E. coli and botulism recently, we decided that we would have Dave on. He is our process engineer. He has been in the food industry for a very long time with us, with Cargill, with some other places, and done a bunch of different things. Has a lot of great knowledge. So we're going to hop on over there and let you guys listen to that interview. All right, so I've got David with us. He is our application specialist here at Walton's. We're going to talk a little bit about botulism and E. coli. But first, David, you want to give a little bit of your background?
Yeah, thanks. So I've been with Walton since July of last year, and I came from Cargill, spent 26 years with them. Of course, a larger processor, and they're about 20 years in a ready-to-eat meat plant in Nebraska, and I was in commercialization since then. I spent some roles in quality assurance, food safety, and research and development. So just glad to be here with the team.
Cool. So 26 years with one company, that's a very long time, especially in the meat industry. It tends to burn people out a little bit quicker than that.
Yeah.
We've already come to you for quite a bit of knowledge. It's been a good addition. But really, we started talking about E. coli and botulism just a little bit a couple episodes ago, and I had the thought, why don't we get somebody who has real experience in the ready-to-eat food industry on the podcast to talk about it. So do you rather start with E. coli, botulism? I mean, I've got some questions, but really I more just like to hear your thoughts.
We can talk about them both at the same time.
Okay.
Around the same questions.
Okay. So between the two of them, which one of them is the larger problem in the industry?
The one I guess is more prevalent would be E. coli, specifically like 0157H7. I think a lot of our viewers have probably heard about Jack in the Box way back in '93, contaminated hamburgers.
Yep.
There was quite a few people got sick and a few deaths there. The one that's really a lot more serious is botulism, which is from a toxin-producing bacteria, Clostridium botulinum. That's more prevalent in like canned foods, especially home canning, but commercially sterile, that's what a lot of producers are really after that are doing commercially sterile products.
Yeah, when we're talking about botulism and canning, I mean, there hasn't been a commercial outbreak since the 70s. Is that accurate?
Probably so.
It's been a long time.
A long time. And again, when you talk about commercially sterile products, they go through a lot of hurdles, time, temperature, and pressure. Home cannings would probably be a higher risk.
Yeah.
If somebody's my mother used to do home canning of meat and veggies when I was growing up, but if you know what you're doing, you meet those requirements. So
there are 5 or so things that have to combine in some way, because botulism, I mean, is not, it's not even the spores that create the real issue. It's when those spores create toxins.
Yes.
Right? So we come into contact with botulism spores a lot more than I think most people think.
Yeah, probably so. The spores, they're naturally occurring in soil in nature. In fact, there's a lot of the Clostridium botulinum is very, very common on most food surfaces. The thing with spores that they're very resistant, very hardy. They can handle really high temperatures.
Can you what is the temperature it can handle?
I couldn't really tell you off the top of my head, but I know as far as being commercially sterile, it has to be over 200 degrees Fahrenheit and very, very high pressure for a certain amount of time to kill off any spores that might be there.
And the spores, so if we take a meat that's infected with botulism spores, put it in a vacuum bag and let it sit, that spore doesn't care about the fact that there's no air in there.
Correct. Actually, that's the only way that Clostridium botulinum can thrive is without vacuum. Right. So that's why it's such a concern in commercially sterile canned foods.
Because there's no air in there, right?
It's anaerobic bacteria. It does not need oxygen to produce. In fact, it needs to be no oxygen. It can produce gas, which can cause a can to actually bloat.
Yeah, okay. So one of the things that I'd always heard growing up is don't eat that can, it's dented. It could have botulism. Yeah, exactly. But it's not actually the dent that's the problem, right? Like
correct.
It's bloated, so it may create a dent on like the other side. But a dented can doesn't necessarily mean
You're right. So a dented can, if it's just from something that got dropped, as long as it's still sealed, it's not an issue. It's when it actually expands, there's gas being produced by.
So if you see a can that looks like just overpressured, we know there's a problem.
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay. Definitely don't eat it. Sure. When in doubt, throw it out.
Okay.
So
even if like you open it and it smells fine, it looks fine. Like I know some white purge is often a sign of botulism.
Yes, potentially. So that's the thing about pathogenic bacteria. Types of bacteria can make you really sick versus general bacteria that spoil food. It may look and smell bad or taste bad, but definitely bad thing about pathogenic bacteria is you can't really see or smell anything that's wrong.
Okay.
So,
But if we're talking specifically about botulism right now,
Mhm.
right? It's low or no oxygen, low salt, low acidity, meaning higher on the pH scale. Is sugar part of it, right?
Yeah, if you have a really high amount of sugar in it, that helps to tie up the water to lower the water activity. And also pH, the pH is well above 4.6. It has opportunity to grow, but if it's below 4.6, it can't grow in that time.
Can't grow at all.
Correct.
Okay, so pickles, all of that would be pretty much perfect.
And also if it's a refrigerated environment too, botulism.
Ooh, what is the temperature range?
So 38 degrees or lower, it's not able to grow or produce toxins.
So 38 degrees Fahrenheit or lower, the botulism spore, even if the spore is there, it can't create. It's not the Shinga. That's E. coli.
That's E. coli. Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
What is the spore? Do you know that botulism? Is it just botulism?
It's botulism is actually comes from toxins produced by Clostridium botulinum bacteria.
Oh, okay, so botulism and the Clostridium botulinum are.
Yeah, that's a bacteria.
Okay, so it goes Clostridium, then the spore, then actual botulism. Okay. See, I wasn't aware of that. All right, so we're talking about home canning can be a real vector. You don't really see it anymore on shelves, but it's still kind of one of the things that's around as a boogeyman, like, the dented can.
Yeah.
Stay away from that. What are some other things people can look out for to protect themselves from
really, the biggest thing is prevention. Like I said, it can be on a lot of food product surfaces because it comes from soil. So, example like vegetables, it's very, very key to wash vegetables before you use those. That's really key. And then temperature control, keeping it refrigerated. Elevated temperatures above 38 degrees, it can potentially grow and produce toxins if it's at that level for a long enough time.
Okay, once that spore is created, the botulism, no killing it, right? By conventional methods. I mean, you'd have to cook your food above 200.
Right, so it's a bacteria that produces the toxins that can really be lethal.
Okay.
And actually kill adults if it's high enough levels. I think it's like 75 nanograms or something like that, but it just doesn't take very much at all.
So just a couple of cells can cause a big problem.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I remember I was in I've told this story a bunch of times. I was in Iowa State, and they were talking about the difference between salmonella and E. coli. And like, you could get a couple hundred, even 1,000 cells of salmonella in you, and you're probably gonna be fine. It's like, you get 100 cells of E. coli in you, you're in for a bad couple of days at best.
Sure.
Botulism is that next step, right?
Yes.
A few dozen, and we could be talking about you're going to the hospital.
Just a little small, minute amount of toxin produced by a few cells is really all it takes to really have lethal effects. But
mostly just gastrointestinal issues, or is it?
It actually attacks the nervous system.
Okay.
And that's where
paralysis.
Yes, paralysis. So that's where you get the issues from. And again, compared to E. coli, it's a lot more serious and lethal, just not as common in like ready to eat or raw meat products.
Okay. So paralysis, I imagine then it's similar to other things where you're not going to be breathing.
Well,
because
I don't know all the details, but it can definitely cause death when it attacks the nervous system.
Okay. All right. So let's focus on E. coli just a little bit here.
Sure.
One of the things that I first learned when I started working here is that meat isn't always the biggest problem with E. coli. There's actually fruits and vegetables, specifically sprouts, are a huge problem with
that's a good point.
E. coli.
Because E. coli it's present in a lot of animals, especially cattle. I mean, generic E. coli, and also the pathogenic ones that we're speaking to. And that's why if it's grown in the ground, there's E. coli in dirt as well. So it's very, very key to wash vegetables before you consume them.
Sure.
Especially if they're raw and not heat treated. So that's very important.
So what I was doing in here the other day, eating those raw peppers.
Yeah. Those peppers were great.
Yeah, they were amazing. Weren't they? Sweetest peppers ever.
Yeah.
But really should be a little bit more careful with those.
Right. I mean, the processors there, they probably go through some kind of a wash in there before they're sent out, but a lot of them they come from the fields. They just get a basic wash, but they should really be washed when you bring them home.
Yeah.
Apples too. That's a good idea.
So what is the sterilization process to?
It's usually just rinsing them with water. I know probably some commercial processors of vegetables may use a very, very low dilute solution of maybe chlorine,
Okay.
but really just at home, just rinse them off.
Just rinsing them off. Okay.
Sure.
What about the fact, and I only know this because I looked
Mhm.
it up and I asked everyone else in the room
Yeah.
because I was shocked this number was so high that
hmm
18% of cases of E. coli in America each year are actually caused by water.
Yes. So contaminated water is probably one of the biggest sources of E. coli, especially pathogenic ones that we're speaking to today. That's, a lot of countries that are underdeveloped, they may not have really good water treatments. So
Mm.
that's usually a big source of that. And that can also be a big case of where it could be baby fatalities as well, because
Yeah.
their system just cannot handle, that level of that type of bacteria in their system, like
Yeah.
you and I could.
I was reading that they
Yeah.
are a large amount of the fatalities, which is
Mhm.
absolutely horrifying. But
Sure.
in general, the water coming out of my tap at home has been treated. So
Sure.
when I'm washing my vegetables in it, there's no worry about, hey, these vegetables were clean.
Right.
Now, okay.
Right.
Okay.
That'd be fine. So,
That's good to know that E. coli is one of the things that our water is treated for.
right.
Okay.
And one thing to remember too is a lot of our viewers may know if they're selling product retail, if it's ground beef, non-intact, that's raw, ready to cook.
Mhm.
There's a USDA directive out there for E. coli control, and there's several programs out there to prevent contamination, but also disposition too.
What's
with
the
it as well.
disposition?
Disposition, what's fairly common is if it is, say, test positive for E. coli, if it's actually tested, would just be to cook it or sell it as product for cooking only. That's fairly common if that does happen.
For cooking, like what else would you sell raw ground beef for? Like,
Well, if you sell it as is, as a
Yeah.
raw
Uh-huh.
finished item,
oh, they have to
Yeah,
cook it before they
correct,
sell
right.
it. Gotcha.
if it's
Understood.
known to be
Understood.
contaminated.
Okay. I was going to say, I mean, I've eaten raw ground beef before, but
Sure.
I've never seen anything
Yeah.
that's sold for, hey, you can
Yeah.
eat this raw ground
So,
beef. Yeah.
if it's knowingly in there, has to be going through some type of disposition. And high pressure pasteurization is another opportunity, but it's not really an option that's used very much. It's like send it through a pressure vessel underwater and the final package under like 87,000 psi for a certain amount of time. But that's not very common. It's usually just, hey, we're going to send it out for cooking only, and cooking it to 158 degrees for at least 2 minutes is going to kill off any of the pathogenic E. coli.
Okay, but pasteurization, that because it is in milk as well, that
Yeah,
kills
that's a
it in.
different type of
Okay,
pasteurization. Sure.
right,
Mhm.
but it does kill it.
Sure.
That
Yes,
okay,
yes,
that's the
correct.
process that
Right.
renders milk safe from E. coli.
Mhm.
Okay, all right. Well, that's very interesting. I was trying to get a feel around here from like, hey, what questions do people have about botulism and E. coli? And I walked around the office and I asked some people, and it turns out nobody knows. Like the average person knows nothing about either one of those other than, hey,
Right.
that sounds kind of bad.
Yeah.
Like someone's like, I think they're foodborne illnesses.
Mhm.
Another person was like, are they like salmonella? I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Like there's even in this building where, we sell meat products. Now, not everybody's involved in
Mhm.
our side of the house.
Sure.
We have purchasing agents and people who have nothing to do with, food
Right.
safety.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was a little bit eye-opening and kind of, before I started here, I mean, I never had a job in the food industry
Mhm.
other than as a waiter. But it kind of was like, oh no, I guess I always was interested in food. I just
Yeah.
didn't think I'd ever do anything with a career for it.
Sure.
As far as botulism E. coli goes, is there anything else you want to discuss? Is there any
The biggest thing
topics?
is prevention, like especially for E. coli, is just prevent it from getting into the product anyway. Hand washing, hygiene is important. And
How often is there a clean product, but then I bring E. coli to it? That's a big concern?
potentially the biggest thing, again, it comes from the soil and also from fecal material, especially in cattle. Humans as well. The biggest thing is during the slaughtering process is carcass wash definitely helps, but also being sure not to break open any of the internal organs, especially in the intestinal area.
Okay.
But that's the key thing is like if there's someone who's working in like the actual outdoor area of the cattle pens going into a small processing plant, they should definitely change out and at least wash their hands or actually shower before if they're going to go in and actually handle raw product that's
Okay.
not going to be cooked. Preventing that cross contamination. That's key.
Is that one of the things that a USDA inspector would like? Do they inspect the offal? Be like, hey, this had an abscess on its
Yeah, that's part of one of
intestines?
their duties that
Okay.
they do. They
Is that
inspect
what they're looking for? Is, hey, this could have bled some E. coli onto the meat?
Oh, not so much. They're
Okay.
more looking for other conditions there, but it's as far as if there's any manure from the cattle that a person may come in contact with, and then definitely we don't want to have that cross contamination with the actual raw ground product, preventing that cross contamination.
That makes
So,
perfect sense.
right.
So that's for the E. coli, and for botulism, we don't, won't really have many customers that are doing any canning, but I mean,
Right.
it is a concern with some prepackaged meat
Sure.
snacks.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, definitely. If it's something that's produced that's in a perfect vacuum, and if it's a higher pH, lower acid product, there's definitely could be some potential there for it.
So what are
Right.
we looking at for higher pH vacuum packed hams, right? Because they might
Yeah.
have their pH raised.
Anything that's definitely over 4.9 or above 4.6 pH.
Oh, so there's some snack sticks that could be in there too, for sure.
sure.
Yeah. Okay. So what are we doing to mitigate that? I mean, I know we've said it a million times, but the number one thing that a major reason that we add SureCure is that exact thing.
Yes,
it's going to help.
Correct. That's a hurdle effect. I mean, you've got nitrite that helps to inhibit bacterial growth, water activity, pH using that control, and also temperature control too. Refrigerated temperatures, Clostridium botulinum isn't going to grow or produce toxins. So as long as it's kept refrigerated.
So we've got some dry cured pepperoni going in
Mhm.
those cabinets right now. So
Sure.
obviously when we do those, the end goal is that they don't need to be refrigerated. We make a bunch at a time, so we refrigerate anyways. But what we're doing there, right, is we're dropping the pH low enough and getting the water activity low enough. So we have two of those safety hurdles.
Correct.
How many in general would you need to do before you would feel safe being say, okay, this is a shelf stable, doesn't need to be
Right.
vacuum packaged?
Depends on, I don't know all the hurdles are required, but definitely pH is key.
Okay.
4.6 or below is key for CBOT.
Yep.
So Clostridium botulinum, CBOT for short. That's really key. And then water activities is the other big one as well. Those two.
Okay,
I'd
so
say the
those
top
two ones are the big one. Okay,
Sure.
so that's how
Yeah.
we're able to get away with those.
Right.
All right, that definitely makes sense to me.
Mhm.
As far as things that can, we already kind of covered the cans. Would a glass jar, like say you did asparagus in a glass jar, because that's a higher pH, not same salt content, possibility of that glass jar exploding? Like, how
If
does
it's
pressure
in there to
built up
begin
there?
with, and if
Yeah.
it's producing gas in that type of environment, yeah,
It could possibly do it.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So
Um,
like, what do you talk about? Like dill pickles too. They're in a very, very low pH brine, so that's usually
They're
not
fine.
a concern for
Yeah.
for
But-
botulinum.
I mean, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head except for asparagus and beets. But beets have probably enough sugar that it
Yeah.
would be. But
Sure.
I can't think of anything else that you would put in a glass bottle, like a mason jar, that would be a major vector. What are some things we can look at from a packaged snack stick, summer sausage, something like that? We would also see some puffiness to the bag, I imagine.
If it's produced from anaerobic environment when there's vacuum packed, they can produce gas like anything that's can grow in a non-vacuum item. You can see some puffiness occur over time.
Okay. Any like discharge? If there was like a white milky, is that
Potentially
a thing with that,
the
or
biggest
no?
indicator would be the puffiness and the
Okay.
gas production.
All right. So either
Right.
way, whether it's cans or bags,
Mhm.
if we're expecting it to not be puffy and it's puffy,
Right.
throw it away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's
So-
a good, easy rule of thumb that I
And
think.
obviously, if there is a large volume of product involved, that's where getting a USDA inspector involved if it's to that point, if it's a larger volume.
Yeah.
If you're under like a USDA inspection.
So for botulism, I mean, there hasn't been a recall in a very long time, correct?
No, there hasn't. It's gotten down to where the commercial guys they've got the process down. I used to work for a company that did retort processing of some products, and you have to go through better process control school, where from maintenance all the way to the operators to management that does a final review on the records just to make sure, hey, we have all these hurdles in place and these systems that checks and balances and verifications that there's not going to be issues with that. And you're right, the process has been down to where it has not been an issue for years. I'm
For a
assuming
long time, yeah.
you said like the 70s.
The 70s
Yeah.
was the last one that I found that was a major outbreak.
And that's
so-
commercial sterilization.
correct.
too.
Yeah. I mean, home,
Sure.
it
Mhm.
probably happens more often than
Yeah.
we care to admit. But okay, unless you have anything else to cover,
No, I think that's all.
David,
So- Hey,
Thanks so much, man.
sure thing.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Dude, I just learned so much listening to that.
He was really, really good. Also knows his stuff. There were numerous things, and they're like, I think I at one point was like, oh, botulism is the Shingo virus. And he kind of looked at me like, or not Shingo virus, but it causes Shinga. And he's like, no, that's E. coli. I was like, oh, yeah. No, I know that.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I meant your other album. Yeah.
But yeah, no. So we're going to have Dave on for some future things. So if you guys have things that you'd like to hear his perspective on, and again, this is somebody who's been in food safety and quality assurance, things like that for 26 years, incredibly knowledgeable person. Let us know in the comments on these videos, and we'll get in touch with Dave and see if we can schedule some future interviews.
Do you think he ever got used to the smell at Cargill? I just know every time I would drive by it, my brother lived in Dodge City for a while.
Right.
It's just like, you go, what is that? And then you smell it before you see it. Right?
I don't think he was at that plant.
Sure.
I think he was in the RTE, and that's one of those is like kind of downtown.
Oh,
so I don't
okay.
think he was out in the Dodge City one.
Yeah.
But yes, I think you eventually get used to that.
I would hope so, because that was pretty pungent.
Because no matter what, eventually a smell just becomes a smell.
Yeah,
Like-
like my house.
The chief, Chief Atterbury, the chief of the police station right by me, said he went to a lady's house one time and he's like, have you ever seen those commercials where like, hey, you've gone nose blind? He's like, I had to do that to a lady the other day.
Oh, no.
Her house smelled totally of cat piss,
Yeah.
and she couldn't like even somewhat aware of how bad she smelled. or
That
the house
actually might
smelled.
be terrible for her health.
Oh, I'm sure it's really bad.
Yeah,
for
you
her
just
health.
breathing that in. Yeah, the pee smells for sure people become unaware of. But yeah, speaking of, is oust still a thing? Because I think that was the commercial that those were on. Like Lysol presented something that actually
No.
eliminated odors.
It's not.
I know,
I
right?
never see that anymore.
Never.
Huh.
I think Lysol just got good at not masking anymore, right? Because you go to your grandma's house and she has that vanilla one where it's like,
Yeah.
and you barely do a half spritz and it's shooting across the room, and you're just like, what is that? But meanwhile, my mom always had like the big pink Lysol that it was still a masker of sorts. It didn't eliminate odors, but
It
until
almost-
oust came along.
Yeah, it almost put in a chemically smell.
Yes.
Yeah, which I didn't
Yeah.
care for.
For sure.
Yeah. My
You know-
garbage can gets Lysol like once a month because that's outside.
Yeah.
Because that's where all the dog's waste goes. That thing will smell pretty bad.
My grandmother used to spray the potpourri with Lysol. And I'm like, I don't like.
What are you doing
You're
here?
not zhuzhing it up. At
What's
all.
your thought? Yeah,
like
what's
it's
the thought
covered in
process?
dust.
She's thinking that she's going to re-energize the
Yeah,
potpourri. Yep.
reactivate it.
Yep,
Yeah,
there you go.
Or that's where the smell will be. Just.
Yeah, we're weird creatures as humans, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Old ladies, dude. That's what they're.
Speaking of weird creatures, I've got some beef tongue going.
Ooh, yeah.
You're going to have to eat some of this.
I'll probably have to try it. It
Okay.
smells fantastic.
It smells great, right?
Yeah.
Brett, come on in. It's too late now. We've already
Oh, just
acknowledged
in
you.
time.
We're
Yes.
recording a podcast. Come on in and say hi real quick. Oh, we didn't turn the thing on. Well, guys, Brett just stopped in because we failed to turn our recording light on.
Oh, whoops.
Did you need something, Brett? We can always pause.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Taking inventory.
So for those of you who don't know, we are moving buildings here pretty soon. We have built a 100,000 square foot. Yep. Over 100,000 square foot structure, just a couple miles up the road as we're selling this, and we'll be moving there hopefully sometime early, mid of this year.
Yeah, next few months.
Couple of months.
It's gonna be a whirlwind. It's gonna be awesome.
We will have an entire new studio, entire new shipping department, building, everything, offices. So it should be interesting. But back to the beef tongue. So it's been in there for 7.5 hours now. I've got it in a crock pot. I put in an onion, and then I put in rosemary, basil, and thyme seasoning, and I've just had it on low. We are going to take it out of there, put it in some ice water, let it sit there for just a couple minutes so it cools down just a little bit. And we're going to peel the skin off, and we're going to slice it up into little pieces and give it a shot. I'm not exactly... I've had tongue before, but this isn't how I made it. I kind of ground it up, for lack of a better term, but not with a grinder. I guess I just like kind of mushed it up on that. So
I'm thinking it's a gray color. Am I correct in assuming that?
grayish. Yeah, there's still a tiny little bit of pink to it. I think what's going to be the hardest part for me is on all the ones I've seen, at least on one side, it still looks like the taste buds are there.
Oh, no. Yeah, I remember watching a lot of Fear Factor, and beef tongue was prevalent. And if not, they would mix it up into like a milkshake with like eyeballs and stuff
Yes,
like that.
those ones are nasty.
Yeah, I don't know how. And they're plugging noses like it's gonna help them or something. I'm like,
I'm trying to think if there's anything on that where you're like, oh, for $10,000. I don't think there's anything I wouldn't eat for 10, like a puffer fish, maybe not, because there's potential for killing you. But like from a gross standpoint, I'll eat an eyeball for $10,000, no problem.
Yeah, it depends on how much you like savor food, I guess. Like if I'm swallowing it, I'm not chewing it up.
Yeah, you might choke on that though. Yeah.
Yeah, but they got medics there. It'll be fine. It got in me, Joe. What?
We're done.
It's over.
Yeah. Eyeball is probably a bad one.
Eyeball would be. Yeah, what's the worst
Testicle doesn't bother me. When we've eaten.
No, I guess it's how it's prepared.
Calf. Yeah, we've eaten everything.
Deep fry anything and the Bloody Mary stuff too.
Yeah, that was pretty darn good.
Borderline favorite.
All right, so we've got just a couple quick stories I want to get to. There's a beef tallow recall. This one's
what in the world?
This one's not. It's not that big a deal. I only bring it up because we just made a ridiculous amount of beef tallow.
You look in the fridge. It looks like John's been pumping for months. It's just.
Thought that the other
you thought
day.
that too?
Yes,
I was like, oh
it
my!
looks like breast milk.
I was like, my goodness.
Yeah. So we've got a ton of beef tallow in there. We turned some of it into moisturizer. Allie's getting into like beef tallow as a skincare product, and it's pretty good. But most of it we're just going to use for cooking. But there's a recall, and it's for the dumbest of reasons.
Oh, no.
It was a company that's not inspected in any way, and they're selling it for people to use for skincare stuff. But on it, it says fit for human consumption.
So
and they can't say that.
Their hands are tied.
No, they can't say that. So they're recalling all of it all across the
they're already
nation.
sent out. Okay.
Yep.
Wow. How does that get
in New
through
Hampshire?
I mean, we've had
I
occurrences
feel like
of stuff like that, but
maybe nobody's watching this stuff as much as you would think.
Yeah.
Before something goes out to market.
There might, be one person, or they're assuming the graphics guy,
or they checked with somebody like me.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it's fine.
Dude,
Yeah,
my
it's fine.
favorite part, like we get interns in here to proofread before anyone will ask me to do it. You know what I mean? So, and I, not for lack of spelling or I just blistering pace. I'd go, no, it's
Can't do
fine.
it.
It looks good to me. Like,
especially can't do something I wrote.
Oh,
because if I wrote it, my brain looks at it and goes, "That's what you mean."
Yeah, but
like, it's not reading the words; it's just getting the
it's
basics.
getting the main point. Yeah.
A couple other things: the USDA cut some jobs from people who were working on the bird flu in error.
Oh no!
So this, I guess, is probably part of that Doge or whatever thing that Elon Musk is helping the government with and reducing government spending. Turns out they fired some people, they don't know how many, from the USDA who were working on a big problem right now, the bird flu. So they're kind of frantically trying to get those people, get in contact with them and let them know, like, hey, this was a mistake. You're not actually fired. Please come back to work.
Oh, boy.
The problem is because it's our government, they don't have everyone's updated contact information.
Are you joking?
So, no, I'm not joking.
Like, that's like
at
day
all.
one you walk in,
and
you put your name and phone number.
These people were they're considered not emergency workers, but they're essential. Public safety. Yeah. So they're essential. They were supposed to be exempt from any of these cuts, but no.
Who is checking this stuff?
I don't know, dude.
What is going on?
Once again, the whole world is held together with gossamer wires, and things are just.
I mean, I get it now. When I was like 9 years old, I thought adults existed. Now that I'm one, I go, oh, we're all still 9.
Yes.
And it's just whoever's yelling at the loudest.
Most people are doing the best they can, but.
And then now that
very
seems
few people have everything together.
Is there not a corrupt politician nowadays either? It's like they get lobbied for this, like, hey, we're going to give you pretty good amount of money. You just vote this way.
Right.
And no one will be on the line.
Yeah.
It's just like, it seems like everybody's doing that.
And I think they probably get more of them like, hey, this is going to hurt your district.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Or if it's like, hey, if you're wired money, it's in your account. It's just like, whoa.
Too late
your
now.
Hands are tied. Yeah.
Nope.
That's ridiculous.
All right. And then this is an article. It's not just eggs. Here's why beef and veal prices are going up. And it's basically talking about how it's a perfect storm. We've talked about it a ton in the past, how to rebuild our beef herd, we have to hold back callosum slaughter. Well, I don't know if you've been paying attention to what ranchers are getting for cattle right now, but it's pretty high. So they're not really wanting to hold much back. So that is reducing the herd further and driving future prices up. So it's kind of this perfect storm. There are some that are starting to realize like, hey, we have to hold these back. So by doing that, we are reducing the supply. We are also kind of reducing the amount of imported beef, at least, that we're bringing in. So just all of these things coming together Probably would have been a good time a couple of months ago to buy a half a cow, a quarter of a cow, something like that. But hindsight's 2020. I've got a freezer full of beef, so I'm good for at least another couple of months. So hopefully this doesn't affect me too bad.
How at what point like your freezer gets down to what before you start to resupply? Or are you kind of just looking for deals and stuff like that throughout the week?
Yeah, looking for deals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kinda where we're at.
Not throughout the week.
Oh, when you come across them,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I try not to go to the grocery store more than once a week. And that's usually just for diet ginger ale, dog bones. Yeah, those are the two staples.
The norms,
pretty much
yeah.
every time.
Well, come on.
My dog now looks at me like I'm the biggest jerk in the world. He doesn't get a bone when I walk in. He's like, what?
Dude, are you joking?
Yeah. And I started giving him eggs in his dog food. His coat is perfect.
Like raw eggs?
Right. Yeah. Raw eggs.
Yeah.
Perfect right now. However, those were eggs I bought a while ago. Eggs are $6 a dozen now. He's not getting eggs.
Do you keep the shells in? You just throw it
No.
in?
I crack it.
You crack it?
I crack it and then I mix it up with his food.
Because I thought, well, it probably
Sometimes I'll
gets
give him
stuck
a
in their
little
throat or
shredded
something,
cheese topper too.
Okay, a little crisp.
He's
yeah,
fancy.
Like, what's the most like? If you were a dog, what would be your favorite treat?
It's got to be beef. They love beef. Actually, no, I'll take that back. I gave my dogs the heart of the first deer I ever killed.
Oh yeah,
they lit up.
You could make a horror movie out of that synopsis
they
right
went,
there. I gave my dogs the heart of the first deer I killed.
How's that?
Is that a
horror
Robert
movie?
Frost poem? What is that?
How is that a horror
No, I'm just
movie?
saying, just like, well, then one of them would get possessed.
Okay,
by
that's what I was
or
gonna
the
say,
deer,
yeah.
and then he wants to get revenge, and then it's
On
an animal
me.
trying to kill
Right.
you. Like
And
that
eat
sounds
my heart.
That'd be a great short story, at least, right?
Well, we could try it.
Throw in some Indian back culture for no reason whatsoever about the heart.
Just because it's America.
Yeah, sure.
Yep, why not?
Might as well.
All right, a couple of funny videos we've got to watch, and then we'll get out of here. First one, I wouldn't say is funny at all. It's actually more horrifying. This is one of my biggest fears, just in a slightly different way. A humpback whale briefly swallows a kayaker.
Oh, I saw that, dude.
Oh, Chilean Patagonia. It comes up out of nowhere and completely engulfs him and takes him under. Then spits him out, then spits his kayak out, and then it comes back.
Oh, no.
Like, it doesn't swallow him again, but it comes back at him again. Humpback whales are
I thought they're supposed to be like
enormous animals.
docile or, I mean,
I don't-
anything that big, though.
I don't think dociles, like, think of a sperm whale. They're super aggressive.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
I mean, they can be. Think of a killer whale. They eat
now we're
everything.
talking.
Right. So just because, it has the name whale in it,
Yeah.
doesn't
People
necessarily
have
mean-
tattoos of it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You think, is a blue whale the largest animal to ever have existed?
I
think it is.
We looked it up and maybe it
Yeah,
depends. Like
'cause they can
mythological
be like
creatures
100 feet
aside,
long.
Yeah, I have no clue.
Yeah.
Feet.
think
I'm out
100.
on. I'm out
Yeah.
on feet.
You want
I
to
don't
do
know.
yards or meters? Is that better for you?
Yards might be better, but it's also from a TV press box point of view.
How many school buses is it?
Ooh, short or long?
Regular full school buses. I'm guessing
4,
Oh no! How long?
6. 3?
School buses got to be 40 feet.
So I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. School.
Let's look it up.
Okay.
look-
While you look that up, I'll bring up the other one. My joking comment on this one was, is that me hunting a wild boar? But Austin's not here, so he doesn't get to laugh at that. This is a video of a hunter misses a shockingly easy shot in a viral video. This guy is legitimately 10 feet away from a wild boar. The boar's not charging him. Like, it's not a super high pressure. It's just standing stock still. And he misses it behind. And then this thing charges him.
Oh.
He hits it with a shotgun. The boar knocks him down at least once.
Oh no.
And then comes back for more.
gosh.
So, what is the moral of that story? Don't miss with a slug on a pig from 10 yards away.
These animals are out for blood, man.
I mean, not even 10 yards. 10 yards is too far. That had to be closer to 15 feet than 10 yards. Like, I'm watching that. That is, looks like from me to you.
Yeah.
And not much further away. Terrible. Hopefully he didn't get mauled too
Blue whale
badly.
size, you're about right. It's like the biggest confirmed is like 98 feet. So
98 feet? Okay. So,
I'll never forget because 98 degrees. So we will.
So there you go.
They're forever
What's your
linked.
favorite band?
The Lachey's. Well, it's actually in sync, but
Ah, well, we were close.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be back next week with Austin. So
Are we
will-
having tongue next week, or this is just we're gonna try this?
I guess I could save some for that. I don't really know.
Well, I was gonna ask you
How
your
would
favorite
be
tongue
if it's
twister, and we're gonna see if we could do it on the outro right here.
I mean,
We got woodchuck. There's seashells.
how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? A woodchuck would chuck all the wood it could chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood.
Wow, you knew the second verse.
That was pretty good, right?
That was phenomenal. Dude.
Yeah, I don't know what the other one is.
She
Something about
sells seashells down
She
by the sea.
sells seashells. By
Betty bought some butter, but she said the butter's bitter. If I bit in my batter, and if the batter bitter, but see, I'm already gone.
Harder for me is just saying the word rear wheel.
Rear wheel.
I hate saying that word. I always want to say real wheel.
Okay,
Like it just in my brain, it doesn't want to work.
nice.
Rear wheel.
That's
Yeah.
oh, cool. John's a robot. Love
All right, we'll see you guys next week.
it. Bye.
Thanks for checking out the Meatgistics podcast. To shop everything but the meat, head on over to waltons.com. To get your meat processing questions answered by experts and enthusiasts alike, head on over to our online community at meatgistics.com. Waltons, everything but the meat.